Yeah, it's the Weege Show back home. I'm not in Philadelphia for Supercross this weekend, which is a bummer. I'll be back next weekend for the race in New Jersey/New York. But actually, the timing is perfect to not just focus on what's happening this weekend, but on a larger topic that I think needs to integrate into what's happening right now. Yes, the headline is a 15-point difference between Cooper Webb and Chase Sexton. Monster Energy Supercross Championship on the line with 5 races to go. And an all-time, statistically, 250 Supercross East Championship. This deep into a season, there have never been 5 riders within 15 points until this year. And that East fight, which includes Seth Hamaker and Tom Vial tied for the point lead, and RJ Hampshire right behind, and suddenly Chance Hymas and even Cullen Park in this thing mathematically, that championship coincides with a East-West showdown this weekend. It's kind of like you have a fight in an alleyway going on between 4 or 5 riders in the East, and then here comes a rumbling car chase down that same alley, 1970s cop style, with Hayden Deegan and Julian Beaumer, each saying they owe each other, they'll be back in Philly. Beaumer said he's got one coming, and you know Deegan's going to lean in on that. You know, that's just going to make him wake up an hour earlier knowing that Beaumer wants to beat him so badly, or at least run into him on the track this weekend. And by the way, Cole Davies, who has emerged after just 6 career Supercross races at about as good as any other 250 Supercross rider in the world right now. I don't think he's lacking for anything. So to all that and all this drama, I take a topic that isn't related to that really at all, but should be. Today I'm going to talk about Motocross of Nations on the Weege Show, which is brought to you by Honda and the CRF250R and CRF450R. Shout out to Honda, which provided the motorcycles for the winning team last year, Team Australia. Now, why am I talking about this race here, October 4th through 6th in England, 6 months ago now? And why would I even talk about Motocross of Nations for this year, which is 6 months away, coming to America at Ironman Raceway? Well, that, folks, is the problem. There has been this long controversy of trying to get the best riders to participate in this event. Now, the MXGP-based riders, it's usually not a problem. The Nations is generally a race just 1 week after their championship on a track that they've raced on a million times. More often than not, the race takes place in Europe where they're all based, so it's not really a big ask. For the American-based riders, and there's more than ever, because back in the day, the event was essentially all GP riders and then 3 Americans on Team USA. Now it has morphed into the Ken Roczen types of the world, the Lawrence brothers of the world. Dean Wilson raced it a million times. Riders you don't even think about, there's Enzo Lopes racing for Brazil, right? So now I'd say, rough guess, maybe 30% of the riders are coming from the AMA American racing scene and racing the Nations. And getting those riders to participate annually is always controversial, always. I do not want to hear anyone say it's these riders today. Every great rider, for the most part, has at some point had pause of this event. I can think of a few in the 80s that did not. Jeff Ward always went. I think in 92 he was finally pretty much done as a racer and didn't go. Rick Johnson always wanted to go, but Jeff Stanton has said no to the race. Bob Hanna has said no to the race. Jeremy McGrath has said no to the race. It's happened time and time again. This is not a generational thing. This is a always thing. And everyone's always trying to figure out ways to fix it. But the problem with Motocross of Nations is it is the race that the fans are most passionate about of any race all year for sure. There is no feeling in your gut like that one when it is country versus country for one afternoon. And one afternoon deciding something. I know we want to extrapolate this and figure out what racing series or riders or nation are better than the others. Historically, it wouldn't be smart to decide that in one race on one day. That's why there's a 17-round Supercross championship to figure out who the best Supercross rider is. But the stakes of it all being on the line one day just heighten that emotion, which no other race can match. We're going to do it right here. We're doing Weege Show right here with the podium behind us. We said yesterday the third moto might have the most stacked lineup in the history of this sport, and it absolutely maybe over-delivered even on that kind of hype. Tim Geiser wins the moto. We talked to him yesterday, got the bump.
Jed Lawrence is trying to win for Australia for the first time ever, but he's still trying to win the moto. It was heart-stopping. Eli Tomac absolutely brought it. Gave it his all for Team USA, who finished second by, I think, 3 points. Probably about the best race any of these people have ever seen, certainly. How about that third moto, guys? Was that good?
Unbelievable.
Was it unbelievable? Yes.
And we care about it so much at that time. But the problem is, we don't care about it long enough for anyone not participating to really feel much regret by not participating. So I went to the race in England this year. Every Nations I've gone to has been epic. It's been off the charts. But they've also all been in America. I went to Unadilla at 87 and in 87 as a kid. Budds Creek, 2007. There's no one that went to that race that doesn't immediately say Budds Creek, kind of like a bachelor party or a wedding, a first date. It's just one of those types of things that you'll never forget all the memories and you rehash them over and over. I would imagine the guy that peaked in high school as the starting quarterback for the team, that feeling he has every day, that's what it's like to talk about Budds Creek 07 and Red Bud 2018 and Red Bud 2022 and probably Ironman in 2025. But I finally got to go to one in Europe, this one in Matterley Basin. I even brought the family. And let me tell you, as usual, there was controversy of who would race for Team USA, who would get picked, and then it went off the rails again when Chase Sexton, who so far has always raised his hand, credit to you, Chase Sexton, injured his hand at the SMX finale, and for a bit it seemed like it was either going to be another B team, like the year before where, Christian Craig didn't even race motocross all year. He's coming back from an injury and racing at the Nations. It's not really a recipe for success. It was either going to be one of those situations or one man could save the day. And he did not have to. There was not $1 on the line. No one would have faulted him if he didn't go. But he did. Eli Tomac said, let's go. I'll do it. Eli Tomac, late, decided to sign on for Team USA to fill in for Sexton. And in the meantime, Cooper Webb, who was not named to the original team, volunteered to race for Team USA on a 250, which he had not raced in years. Heck, he had barely raced motocross at all in years. He had no need to actually do it. If Cooper Webb doesn't sign up to ride the 250, no one's going to get mad at him for not signing up to ride a 250. It probably wasn't even front of mind for anyone to even think that he's a candidate for that. And same thing with Tomac. He was announced not on the team. To ask him 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, you got to go in about 10 days, you got to airship a bike over there and be ready, he could have said no and that would have been fine. But they both said yes. And that led to an absolutely epic afternoon. Look at this cover here and the superstars that were gathered. You've got Jeffrey Hurlings, Roman Fevre, Jorge Prado. That's Max Amsty. Of course, got to put the Englishman on the cover. There is Jet Lawrence, Ken Roxon, and shout out to the graphic designers that made this program for getting Tomac's picture on the cover with probably like 5 days' notice. The race was epic. And the race was in doubt going into the final moto of the season. The final moto of the season that's one day. And with all the pressure stacked up and all the odds and who's going to take it in this final showdown moto with one of the most stacked gates, honestly, in the history of the sport of motocross, Tomac grabbed the whole shot and led. Now, we didn't hang on. We kind of now know that the 2024 Eli Tomac wasn't up to full endurance like we were seeing at the beginning of 2025 in Supercross. But the point is, Tomac being there, and to nearly as significant a degree, Webb somehow being good enough to get third overall in the MX2 class when he had no business doing that well. Those two riders stepping up for Team USA made the event. They didn't make USA win, but I know I talked to a ton of fans there that were just shocked and in awe that they got to see Beast Mode Eli Tomac one more time, and he was good. And he whole shot that all-time epic final moto and led it for a while. Shout out to the Australians for winning. Shout out to Tim Geiser for winning that final moto. But the overall crescendo of this weekend is something that you'd love to be able to bottle and hold on to all year. But we don't. No one thinks about Motocross of Nations right now because it's 6 months in the rear view and 6 months in the front view. And that's part of the problem. I'm never going to say that riders have to or should race this event. It's their life. They can do whatever they want. Heck, for years I was the television announcer only for the Pro Motocross Nationals, and there were tons of great riders that would choose not to race in those races. They wanted to do Supercross only, and I'm fine with that. It's their life to live. I'm not saying that riders should have to participate in this race. But if you're someone who does want to, there should be an incentive, and it's never going to come financially. It's just not the way any sport is set up. When you're paid to win championships and races in a certain sport or series, that's where the money is going to be. NBA players are making hundreds of millions of dollars to play in the NBA. They're playing in the Olympics for $0. Now, there's national pride on the line. And of course, on the business side, you could say there's a marketing aspect to it. And they are all-time heroes. Aaron Plessinger, who always raised his hand, of course he participated last year. There was no doubt about that. And then Tomac and Webb step up and do it. And on that day, on that weekend, it was amazing and it was awesome and the vibes were high. And I'm sure right then and there they felt, yeah, this is awesome that I'm part of this. This is what I signed up for. But right now, Cooper Webb is in the midst of a title fight, and all anyone is thinking about is, can he hold off Chase Sexton for the next 5 rounds? Can he avoid the big mistake? There's pressure and all of that, and that's as it should be. But at the same time, I feel the reward, since you're never going to put together a business case to give these guys $1 million to race Motocross of Nations. There should be something else. That pride, that pressure that they put on their shoulders to go represent, it shouldn't fade as soon as the race is over. That passion that I said that every fan has at Motocross of Nations, it's like no other race, but it also is gone. It only lasts for about 10 days, the days leading up and the days when it's over, and then everyone moves on to silly season and off season and who's going to win Anaheim. So why not try to make Motocross of Nations a little more relevant throughout the year? Why not pick a marker like right now, halfway between last year's event and this year's event, April, for an event that takes place at the beginning of October or the end of September? Why not give them a little shine on the big stage in a stadium at Supercross? So a modest idea that I have here, this is not earth-shattering. I'm not trying to raise $1 million here. What if there was a race within the Supercross calendar that was dubbed the International Race? And any of the riders that participate that signed up and raced for their Motocross of Nations team, they get to do something special. Wear the gear with your country's colors that you wore in that race. Stick out. Maybe change the graphics on the motorcycle. Let's have a ceremony, maybe halfway through the night or during opening ceremonies, where the podium riders bring their FIM medals. Let's play some national anthems. Let's let them wear the team jacket. And I don't mean just the Americans, the Australians, and Ken Roczen from Germany, and Enzo Lopes, and Dean Wilson, and all these other riders that participate. Max Anstey, that would be awesome. Let's remind them of how great it was that they, for no money, decided to go do this. And let the American fans who are so pumped quickly be reminded, oh yeah, Tomac didn't have to race. Webb didn't have to race. They chose to do it. They chose to do it for their country, and they chose to do it for the fans, and they should be rewarded for that, at least with one extra bit of applause in a beautiful environment like an NFL or MLB stadium. And just remember that even though they're in these gnarly title fights right now, where to feel like their life is either going to be decided one way or another on how this championship turns out, remind them that they've already done something quite awesome, win or lose. They participated in the event when they didn't have to. Just a modest proposal that I think we need to do. Because the whole problem with donations is, yes, the riders that choose not to do it, they take heat for a while, but that heat fades. And yes, the riders that choose to do it, they get rewarded and the fans think it's awesome for a while, but then that reward fades. What if it was possible to keep it going a little bit longer, a little reminder? And maybe an SMX Next rider is watching this ceremony on the podium at a Supercross and says, I want to do that. That's my goal in 3 years, to be where they are, or something along those lines. It's a modest proposal. What if we had an international night with all the other theme nights there are in Supercross, be it the race that saves lives with St. Jude or the military appreciation event? Let's have an international one. And let Ken Roczen wear his German colors. And let the Lawrences wear their Australian super neon green yellow. And of course the Team USA riders and Max Anstey get to go red, white, and blue. Because that's both flags. Just something to think about. And if we can't do it this year, Let's just spare a minute to think about Cooper Webb, who did not have to race, especially on a 250, especially not in the rain and mud of England, and he did it, and he got third in his class when he was probably underqualified to get third on a 250 on a motocross track in rainy England, but he got it done. Well enough. Tomac whole shot in that moto, and Plessinger riding well, always stepping up for Team USA. They should have that reminder halfway between last year's race and this year's race. Just think about them for the weekend. Just think about them. It's all we can do for now. Reward them for their effort with some cheers. Thanks for watching.